Okay, Madam Mayor, the live stream has begun.
Thank you. Just as a quick update to those who may be participating virtually, we've had a new sign-on procedure and it's just taking a little bit longer. We're waiting for one more person to come on and we'll get started. I wonder if he knows which button that is at the bottom. Yeah, he should be on. He was putting his info in. It could be a bad internet day too.
Hi, John. Go ahead. Oh, here he is.
Oh, here he is.
Perfect.
Good, good.
Good job.
Good. Well, I'll just start the preamble piece till we get everybody completely hooked up. Thank you everyone for your patience. It is now, what, 9:36, and I'll call the meeting to order. So here we are starting month 5 of our virtual meetings in response to COVID. We're continuing to hold our meetings electronically. The municipal office is now open by appointment. However, members of the public are invited to participate in this aspect of our service electronically by accessing our YouTube channel, which is on the webpage. And the public meetings for the planning applications will start right after the delegations, presentations, and petitions. There are no additions to the agenda. I will ask councillors now if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, then we'll move to delegations, presentations, and petitions. Our first item is the presentation by our CAO. Michael, if you'd like to give us an update on the COVID-19 recovery.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to be getting shared access where I can get presentation to council.
Michael, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just one moment. I'm just getting the shared access and I'll get the presentation up. Can you see my presentation? Okay, great. Thanks, members of council. Just to get started, we are, as the mayor mentioned, on month 4 or 5 now, and I thought it'd be important to give council and the general public an update on where the municipality stands in response to the pandemic. Some of the agenda topics that I'm going to go through with you this morning is what we've been doing since March, very high overview. I'll touch upon our municipal recovery plan and speak about our operations update and our next steps, especially in response to the recent announcement regarding stage 3 reopening from the province. So just a brief overview, we declared an emergency back on March the 17th, 2020. That emergency still stands, that declaration. The province has put in place amendments where they now can extend the emergencies declarations without having to resume parliament. So we're just keeping an eye and observing what the province is doing and with our health unit, and we'll gauge when our declaration will come to an end. But for the time being, it still stands. Since March 17th, our emergency control group, consisting of the mayor, the deputy mayor, directors, senior staff, have been meeting 2 to 3 times a week. Now we generally meet prior to the weekend and after the weekend. And we review a number of items just to make sure that there's continuity with our municipal operations, that we have the health and safety of our council, our staff, our residents at the forefront, and well-being. We also from time to time have external stakeholders, including our county CEMC. We have our other municipal partners we dialogue with, and we've had the police on occasion join us as well. We do our utmost to make sure that all of this information is updated, and we have specific sites on our municipal webpage, and the link is noted there. We also have been very observant of the province and its recovery action plan, and we have that information noted within this presentation and linked from our municipal website. And further, most importantly, is just making sure that our staff and council are briefed. And we've been trying to make sure that there's been almost daily updates since March that have been going out to make sure that everyone's apprised of all the different changes that have been taking place. Just speaking to our recovery plan a little bit and our action plan, back a couple of months ago, we decided to be a little bit proactive, and we put in place a web page that's dedicated to how our municipality is responding in response to the province and the orders that are coming down. And it's been really well received, and it's an opportunity for us to make sure that council and the residents and the public are aware. And our Project Restart has a 3-stage approach, but it is fluid and it is flexible in terms of how we operate and make decisions with respect to opening of services. And that is all detailed and outlined specific to the link that's on your screen there. The municipal plan outlines the staged approach for all services and how we are reopening our amenities. And we have it very detailed and outlined on the website link. We also, just a quick snapshot of an overview of the 3 phases that I've outlined. And again, it is fluid, it is flexible. We're not regimented or stuck to one particular phase in terms of how we open one service over another. We're very mindful of the provincial orders and the regulations that are coming from one week to the next. And we're doing our utmost to make sure that we respond accordingly. We do urge a bit of caution, patience and caution. We don't react immediately when we get the orders from the province. We look at them, we research them, and then we generally apply what we think is best to make sure that it's safe and that we have the protocols in place. So with stage 3 being announced coming into effect this Friday, you may see the website updated to reflect certain amenities opening immediately, whereas it might give us a couple more days or a week's time to open up other amenities. But we'll do our utmost to respond accordingly, react, and make sure that we can get our services open and for those that were closed in a good speedy time. Just going over our municipal operations. One thing to keep in mind is all public serving facilities are closed with certain such services, including our wellness center, certain outdoor amenities. The library is reopening gradually. So we are very cognizant of this. We're working with our community partners like the library, like the YMCA. The municipal office is now open by appointment only as of July 6th, and we have started to receive some residents to help them with those services. And we do expect to see additional services reopening because of the stage 3 announcement. So stay tuned for that. Following this later this week, beginning of next week, we'll be able to have more amenities open. And the emergency control group will be reassessing this at its meeting this Friday. When it comes to the continuity of essential services, one thing to keep in mind is our staff who are forefront and at the most thought of my top of my mind. And we are happy to report, we are beginning to have staff levels return back to normal, especially with the reopening of amenities like the Enviro Depot, more openness in our community services area and our customer service. So happy to report that we're bringing staff back and working again at our municipality. The other thought to keep in mind is just the fiscal effect from the pandemic. And we've been very upfront and making sure that we're monitoring and tracking our expenses carefully. We've been providing monthly reports to council on our revenues and expenses. And we've put in place cost containment strategies. These strategies we've also shared with the province, and they're happy to see that the type of proactive measures we've put in place by deferring our capital projects, by cutting back on our expenditures, showing the foresight that the municipality has taken to mitigate the losses from the pandemic. And we have been tracking and responding to residents on a one-on-one basis to deal with any shortfalls that do come into the office. And this is being tracked and reported to council as well. In terms of some community measures, I think it's important to touch upon this since the pandemic. It's one thing from a municipal operations standpoint, but from a community standpoint, how the municipality can do its part and play a leading role. And we had the Mayor's COVID Cut Challenge earlier in the year that raised fundraising money for the food bank. The municipality hosted a business outreach session for our business community a couple of weeks ago, and that was well received. And that information webinar is posted on our website, and the link is shared in this presentation. We've also been able to respond to some of the orders from the province and help out our business community. A couple of examples of the patio reopening, we had a quick response, less bureaucratic, and we responded steadfast to have some of our area businesses able to operate and respond quickly. And that was all through our building department and our building official through his good work. And through our Director of Community Services and the management at the Wellness Center. We were one of the first municipalities in Southwest Ontario to open up the ice once the province lifted its order in this regard. So, and further, there'll be a report coming to council in August regarding our community improvement plan and some updates through the Warden's Task Force. So we're trying to do our part as a leader in the community to help out our residents and our businesses. When it comes to the operations, one thing to keep in mind is we've been open, we've been working and throughout the pandemic, and it's been a seamless transition that I'm happy to report to council. The first phase of our administrative staff returned on July 6th, and we look to have further staff back after the civic holiday. And our outside staff, public works, have all transitioned back to their normal working hours. And part-time staff began returning to work around mid-June based on the service levels at our community services areas. One thing to keep in mind is we've had a lot of protocols since the pandemic happened. Our control group, our health and safety coordinator have put a lot of work into making sure that one thing to have staff come back, but it's another to make sure that we have them come back in a safe environment. And so we've had training for all staff that's been mandatory, and we have proper cleaning and safety protocols at all of our site establishments. And I'm very proud and thankful for the senior team for all the work that's gone into making sure that we have, I can feel assured that we have an organization where staff are safe, staff can perform their work, and feel good about that. Just impacts to council with respect to meetings. We are still live streaming our meetings and will continue to do so following the pandemic. We are using the electronic platform for now. And for today's meeting and for August, we will be holding them electronically. And then we'll give some consideration to maybe looking at council meeting in person. And should the social gathering ban be lifted even further, we can also look at some flexibility in terms of a hybrid using Zoom or Zoom with the public. So that's something that's on top of mind. And especially with the introduction of Bill 197, we'll look at doing some analysis and report back at a later date in terms of how we can give consideration to a hybrid electronic format when it comes to where appropriate. So that's something to look at if the bill becomes law. I'll report back later in the year in this regard. In terms of next steps, nothing's changed in terms of our emergency control group. We're committed. We continue to meet two to 3 times a week. We're going to do a big review of the stage 3 reopening. There's a lot of information in the framework, and we're just reviewing that combined with the health unit protocols. There's been a lot of discussion recently with neighboring municipalities, London and other regions throughout the province about such things as wearing a face masks and how does that impact our organization and staff coming into the office or working out and about. Just making sure that our municipal staff are equipped to return to work and they have the proper training and sanitation and the flexible working arrangement. It's been working fine so far, and so it's something we're exploring, and to make sure that our website is continuously updated and our communications coordinator is doing a fabulous job making sure that our municipality is up to speed on all the different changes that are taking place. Just any comments or questions, I'm happy to field them from council.
Thank you for that presentation. I don't have a full screen right now, so if you have, oh, okay, that was easy. Are there any questions then from our councillors? Okay, seeing none, well then, thank you for that report, Michael. It's been very useful to have these regular updates and keep us all apprised. And it's also good to see that our team is working in cooperation with and helping out and sharing information with our neighbors and our other partners. So that's great. And as well, I think we all appreciate the flexibility and the focus that our staff has been able to exhibit in pivoting and making sure our services are continue to be delivered to our residents. So thank you for all of that. Moving on to the next item, which is 4.2, is a presentation on the Pfister drain, and we have Mike DeVos from Street and Associates attending, and Rob and Dan will also be available to speak and answer questions. And I see Mike is there. There's Rob. Okay. I can't hear anything, but if you want to take it away, Mike, when you're ready, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I sure can, thank you.
Okay, and you can see the screen with the drawing on it?
Yep, it's all clear.
Okay, this meeting is a reconsideration of the Pfister drain. We did hold a consideration around a month ago. Originally, there was a request that came in from a landowner to alter the work, the proposed work. The landowner does want the portion of the open ditch, and this is where my cursor is in here, enclosed, as well as the upper part here that's already being proposed to be enclosed. We had proposed it to be open ditch reconstruction. There may be some challenges moving forward with getting approvals from the agencies, but the landowner wishes to pursue that. So what we've done is we've separated the project into 2 different projects. The landowners don't want to wait for the upper parts, mostly being the closed work, to wait. So this report has that open piece at the bottom removed from the project. So it's very similar in the same type of proposal in the upper part, but the lower part would become a separate report at a later date once we can get some answers from the agencies on whether that approval may come. There was another small change on the west branch, the type of material to be used here. It's a very small watershed, and instead of using concrete tile, the idea would be to plow in a plastic pipe, keep it a little bit smaller and try and save a little bit more money. It would require a different type of machinery to be put in, but there may be some savings to be had if we use that different type of material. So other than that, the proposal is very similar to what we had originally. And I'll stop and open up for questions.
So are there questions? Does anyone in council have questions of the presenter? I don't see any there. Well, in that case, we do have a motion before us that the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives the revised Vista Drain Report from Mike DeVos of Street Associates dated the 11th of May 2020 and June 25th, 2020, and authorizes the project proceed, and that the Court of Revision will meet on August 12th, 2020, and further that Councillor Heffernan, Councillor Arts, and Mayor DeVete be appointed to sit as members of the Court of Revision, with the Mayor being the Chair. I would entertain a motion, a mover and a seconder. Just a second here. That'd be Deputy Mayor Brennan, and just a sec, I can't see the others. Councillor Heffernan. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, then that is carried. Thank you, Mike, for that presentation. And we'll move to the next item then, which is the Court of Revision for the Lender's Municipal Drain. So we have to step out of regular council session and move into the Court of Revision. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Silva and, Councillor Scott. Is there anyone opposed? No? Okay, then, so I'll call this Court of Revision to order. With regard to the order of appeals, none have been received, so we would entertain questions from members if there are any. I don't see Councillor Arts, he's shaking his head, and Councillor Heffernan, okay. So in that case, no questions. We have no changes in the assessment schedule, which is being considered, so we can move right to a decision. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the decision? That would be Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Arts. Any opposed? Seeing none, then mover and a seconder to adjourn the Court of Revision. Mover. Oh, I'm sorry. We also have to approve the schedule as presented, and then we can adjourn. Mover and a seconder. Okay, I have Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott. Very good, thank you very much. Then all parties to the drain will receive written notice of the Court of Revision decision, which will contain additional information on any appeals that might be forwarded to the Court of Revision and the Ontario Drainage Tribunal. So now that here we are. Adoption of the minutes. We have 2 minutes, minutes of the Special Council for June 24th and minutes of the regular Council June 24th. The motion before us is that the minutes of Middlesex Centre Special Council meetings held on those dates be adopted as printed. Is there a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Silva and Councillor Scott. Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have item 6.1, which is the budget process, and Tiffany will be presenting that. Oh, sorry, it's consent. And we also have, sorry, councillor member involvement in the budget. We have a motion there that Councillor Arts and Councillor Shipley be appointed to the working group for that budget, and they will join Municipal staff during those discussions in September, October, and November 2020. Are there any questions? Seeing none, then could I have a mover and seconder then, please, to receive the consent agenda items? Councillor Shipley and Deputy Mayor Brennan. Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Now we have the Risdon Drain Improvement Request, item 6.3. Oh dear. That was part of it. Sorry, I'm on, that was slow. That was just not a whole page. Sorry, we're moving to 7 now, our staff reports. So item 7.1, which is the municipal right of way bylaw. We have presentation from Arnie. Okay, while we're waiting for Arnie to come on, could I have a motion to table this item, please, that report 2020 be received? Oh, no, we can't do that till we hear from him. Sorry. Arnie's not. Oh, there he is. Okay, Arnie, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. All right. Would you like to present your report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor DeVitt. Members of council, today I'm here to present the municipal right-of-way bylaw for your consideration and approval. I'd like to thank members of council and the members of the public for their input. We've gotten a lot of great comments back from the public and through council. So based on a number of comments we've received, very, very constructive, I'd like to suggest a few revisions to the bylaw that's being proposed. This municipal right-of-way bylaw, I guess before I introduce those amendments or changes to this bylaw is recommended as a replacement to a bylaw passed by council a couple of years ago. This bylaw provides a bit more simplicity with regards to our permitting processes within the road allowance for entrances and the use of the road. It also provides set fine structure for easier enforcement by staff when there are situations we come across that need some enforcement. That said, there's been a couple of great recommendations we've received and comments from the public and from council. So I'd like to go over those with you, hopefully before I guess we open up to other questions. Section 2F of the bylaw, we're recommending that be removed in its entirety. 2F was with regards to requiring landowners to maintain their culvert. Currently, we have a good system in place that we don't really need this section 2F. Section 3G and 3GG are with regard to loading and unloading within the road allowance. And staff certainly recognize that the farming community does need to use the road allowance from time to time. And it certainly was not our intent to interfere with what would be a normal farm practice. So what we are recommending is that those two sections be revised to restrict loading and unloading to within 150 meters of an intersection. So we'd like to reword that to 3G say, no person shall permit or cause any materials to be transferred from private property onto or across a municipal right-of-way within 150 meters of an intersection. And section 3GG would say, no person shall load or unload a farm tractor, trailer, or other commercial vehicles on right-of-ways within 150 meters of an intersection for the purpose of a farm or commercial operation. Now, if there is a situation where you need to be within that 150 meters, there is an option to discuss it with staff and potentially get a permit or get prior approval. I think it's everybody's intent that we're safe on our roadways, and visibility around intersections is important, that staff think this should be included in the bylaw. Another section that we are recommending be slightly revised is section 3FF, and that's trimming within the right-of-way, trimming trees. So we certainly do appreciate the assistance when landowners do trim trees within a boulevard. So it's certainly, again, not our intent to say you may not do that entirely, but we have had a situation recently where a landowner has removed a number of trees within the road allowance without approval of the municipality. So staff feel that we do need to address that still. So section 3FF of the bylaw, we've slightly revised to read, no person shall remove or trim trees in a way that may damage a tree on your municipal right-of-way. So it does allow for some pruning or trimming as long as they don't damage the tree. Another section, section 2E and 3EE, keeping land cleared adjacent to properties. This is really intended to impact properties within our settlement areas, and we like to see landowners cutting the grass generally along the boulevard. That's the intent of this section. We understand that we're not looking for the farming community to do the same thing. across in our rural areas. So both of these would be reworded to say every owner shall keep the land cleared on the municipal right of way adjacent to their property within a settlement area. And we would also include the definition of a settlement area to state a settlement area means a settlement area as identified in the municipality's official plan as amended. So with the assumption that these revisions are approved by council, we also would make the right changes within our set fine structure, so they're reworded accordingly as well. That's my report to Mayor and council, and I'm open to any questions from you.
Okay, thank you for the report, Arnie. I'll open it up to questions. Councillor Scott? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, through the mayor to Arnie. A couple things I was thinking about also would be, what about in the settlement areas with trucks unloading? Let's say people are getting furniture delivered to their house, TVs. What would that affect? And the other thing I was going to mention is I got a call about signs, real estate signs. I know there's a section in there that says there's no signs and no posts or no posting of signs on any of our properties.
So through the mayor, within our settlement areas, we would rely on the signage that's in place. We do have parking or no parking signs within our settlement areas. So the intent of this bylaw really is to look at the 150-meter separation to an intersection within rural areas. We do have a sign bylaw. The sign bylaw does permit temporary real estate signs like sandwich board signs. This really is more geared is not geared to regulate signs per se, more that no person shall attach things to hydro poles or stop sign posts. We've had complaints of placards being placed on hydro poles or trees, and also people putting signs on stop signs, advertising garage sales, for example. That becomes a safety matter, and we just don't want to see that.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up? No. Councillor Heffernan? You're on mute, Deb. There you go.
Okay. Thanks. Arnie, one of the things that I was asked about, excuse me, was with regard to signs. I understand where you're coming from there, but for example, at the fair time and at different times, we might have a sign that says parking for the fair is King Street, or we have the street is closed for the parade at such and such a time. Does the fair staff already contact you about that, or this bylaw would seem to be all inclusive?
Yeah, agreed. Through the mayor. So the bylaw really does prohibit signs being placed on hydro poles and trees, but it also does allow for the communication, whether it's through an official permit or some type of a communication, even via email by, say, the fair board, sending an email and communicating with staff that we want to put these directional arrow signs or fair signs on these poles in these locations. And as long as we can communicate that back and forth, I don't suspect that would be a concern. But yeah, generally you're correct that those would be included technically, that, an arrow sign pointing down King Street for parking shouldn't be secured to a hydro pole or a stop sign. So that's where we should communicate that in advance and give it prior approval. It may be as simple as an email between staff.
Okay. I guess I'm concerned that the way the bylaw is written, it restricts a lot of stuff, but then there are occasions when they're not restricted, and plus there's a variance between rural and settlement areas as well. And I'm not sure that they're all clear right now. That's my comment.
Okay. Well, we certainly may be able to clarify a few things. We've kind of done that with the clearing of the boulevard.
Could I ask a question, Arnie?
Yeah.
When you say you're wanting to say work with the fair board, for example, in the previous discussion, then so what you're saying is, or do I understand correctly that you're saying that when you work together, you will identify the appropriate kinds of communication means or vehicles or formats or locations, as opposed to saying, yeah, you can stick them up today for the fair parking, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a combination of those that if somebody wants to put up a placard advertising for parking for the fair, it just to communicate that with staff. And whether I don't envision a true permit being required to put an arrow sign pointing down King Street for parking, but I think it is wise for them to communicate with us so we can, if there is a safety matter created, we also don't want big billboard signs put up at the intersection of King Street and Ilderton Road. So I think it's important that, you know, people such as the Fair Board do communicate with staff, you know, what it is they're proposing, where their signs are going to be and what height they're going to be attached to a stop sign or a hydro pole. And we can give that verbal approval or provide a written approval. But I think it's important that those things are looked at before they're done so that the wrong assumptions aren't made, especially if there's like a billboard sign, for example, put in the wrong place, obstructing visibility.
Okay. So I think I hear you saying it's about mitigating risk and making sure our liability isn't increased because of certain things happening.
For sure. And really, we get a lot of complaints of sign pollution. So we also have to play both sides a little bit. We're certainly reasonable with how we enforce the bylaw, but yeah, you do have to be careful, certainly, to mitigate hazardous situations, such as visibility at intersections.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions for Arnie? Councillor Scott, then Councillor Shipley.
Yes, through the mayor to Arnie. So I understand that we didn't have a bylaw like this. This is brand new, or is this just a revised one that's got a lot of additions to it?
Yes, through the mayor, there is a current bylaw passed in 2018 by council. This is more of a simplified version of that. It is a very regulatory document as well, but it doesn't have some things that would be useful to the bylaw department, such as an easy fix for enforcement, such as set fines. So if somebody cuts down trees in the road allowance without approval and those trees should have been stayed there, we can write them a ticket through this new bylaw. Where the previous bylaw, it would be a trip to court and fairly expensive for the municipality. So this really simplifies enforcement. And it also speaks to a couple other minor situations that we'd like to add to it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shipley, you're up.
Through the mayor, Arnie, you and I had discussion yesterday in regards to 3HH, access properties, locations other than designated driveways. I'd like a little more clarification on that, because I know we had discussion saying like some of these farms, the roads aren't wide enough and small driveways, and trying to come up with a set of D trainings, you can't make the turns, so you do have to come at an angle. The way I'm reading this now is that if they are seen going in, accessing a property, they couldn't have a charge laid against them. I'd kind of like to see something written in there if damage occurs at these locations. Just more clarification on that, because if someone sees a set of trains or 30-foot dumper going in an angle, they could be charged technically by the way this bylaw reads, if I'm reading this right.
So potentially rewording HH as access properties at locations other than designated driveways and cause of damage. We could say, we could include that as a condition, that they may not do that and damage the road allowance. And that could be the condition of that clause.
Yeah, just clarification. Yeah, just clarification. If they do damage it, then they could be charged, basically. Yes, that's all I'm looking for.
We're
Thank
damaging. You. Yeah, we're damaging. We can add that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Yeah, Arnie, the intent of the bylaw is great. I have no issues with the intent of the bylaw or the fine structure or anything like that. I think you put a lot of work into it. There's a lot of little things that I'm still getting calls on, the 150 meter setback from an intersection. Some feel that's a little too long because that's halfway across the farm. I'm just wondering if we could defer this until next month and I could have an opportunity to sit down with you for an hour and go over some of the things that I've been hearing from people and try to, get where you're coming from, and I can try to convey to you what the farmers are telling me. So I don't know if that's an option or if you would be okay with that.
Yeah, through the mayor, staff are absolutely open to the meetings such as that and bringing this back.
Okay. Michael, did you want to comment on process on that one?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, Madam Mayor and Council. That's basically what our objective is to pass the resolution that the report be received and that we can then defer consideration of the bylaw and bring back the updated bylaw with these changes that the building official has outlined. And that way it'll be on the agenda and it'll give time for council to do some further outreach, because we can quickly do a turnaround and send the draft out to council for any last comments, and then we can list it for adoption at the August 12th meeting.
Deputy Mayor, is that okay? I see a thumbs up. I see nods and smiles. Okay. Yeah. So make sure you reach out to staff then with your questions, and we'll get it all cleaned up and as perfect as possible. Yeah, I just lost my screen here. Shoot. Here we go. So if there are no further comments, then we need to, the motion before us is that the report be received and that council pass the municipal right of way bylaw. And mover and
just a quick that the bylaw be brought to the August 12th council meeting for adoption.
and the amended version
with revisions. Yeah.
Yep. So there's an additional clause to say that the amended will come forward next meeting. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Silva and Councillor Shipley. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you for the report, Arnie, and everyone for your input and thoughts on this.
Thank you.
Item 7.2 has been pulled from the agenda for future discussion, and we'll see that come forward probably in the near future. Now, I'd like to make a motion to move out of regular session and move into the Committee of Adjustment. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Silva, Deputy Mayor Brennan, any opposed? None. So I'll turn this over now to the chair, Councillor Silva.
I don't believe I have the normal information I usually have for Committee of Adjustment meetings. Okay, that's fine. We'll go from the agenda. All right. I guess. Well, I don't.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was just saying that the 8.1 is an application for variance filed by Brock Development Group on behalf of Jeremy and Michelle Dornbush at 145 Harris Road. Did you want me to read the application too?
No, that's okay. I was just trying to get the. Oh, there we go. Heather just sent me. Oh, yeah. No, I don't think that's what I need. I was more concerned about having the.
Oh, the order. The planner speaks first, then the chair asks for the applicant to speak, and then we go. So,
all right, so I will call this meeting to order. If anyone wishes to receive notification regarding the minor variances or any other planning applications being considered, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.on.ca and indicate in your email which applications you would like to see notice on. Also, please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. The procedure will be the same for each planning application, and the order of procedure shall be as follows. The chair, I will explain the purpose and effect of the application. The secretary treasurer or clerk will provide any additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report, if any. The planner will give an explanation of the application and present the staff report, and then the applicant and or their agent has the opportunity to speak to the application. Afterwards, any public that have requested to participate in the meeting electronically will be asked for their comments. Public participants will be unmuted and able to speak when called on by the chair. Please ensure that you state your name and address so that your information can be reflected in the minutes. Speaking notes of those who have asked to participate have already been provided to council for their information and consideration. The committee may then ask questions of the applicant and or staff. The chair will then consider any motions regarding the applications. And all that being said, please note that there is a 20-day appeal period from today's date to allow for appeals against the Committee of Adjustments decision, and that if any members of the public or the applicant have any questions about the appeal process, they may contact the clerk and write. So the items up for consideration. No, not that. There we go. The first one is application A03-2020, filed by Brock Development Group on behalf of Jeremy and Michelle Dornbosch at 145 Harris Road in Delaware. The minor variance application is for relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaws maximum size for an accessory building, where the applicant is requesting a maximum size of 78.78 meters squared or 848 square feet for all accessory buildings on the subject property, whereas the comprehensive zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of 50 square meters or 538 square feet for all accessory buildings. Yeah, so that being said, do we have any other comments that have been received in the last few hours or since yesterday? I'll take that as a no. The planner, can you please give your report?
Through the chair, yes, thanks. I'm just going to see. Okay, 1 second. Benefit of council, I'm going to try to share my screen to show the location map here. Can everyone see that? Okay. So through the chair, thank you to all the members of the committee. My name is Dan Fitzgerald, planner for Middlesex Center. The application before the committee today is with respect to a property located at 145 Harris Road, which is requesting a minor variance for the purpose of increasing the maximum permissible size for accessory buildings on the land. The subject property is a 0.69 acre parcel, residential lot with a frontage of approximately 27.75 meters and is located in Delaware on the north side of Harris Road. The lands are surrounded by residentially zoned lands on all sides. Additionally, the lands are designated residential in the Middlesex Center official plan and zoned community residential first density CR1 zone in the Middlesex Center zoning bylaw. The purpose and effect of the application, as noted, is for a minor variance to seek relief from the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the maximum permitted size for accessory buildings on a lot in the CR1 zone. The owner is requesting a maximum size as noted as 78.78 meters squared for all accessory buildings on the subject property, whereas the comprehensive bylaw currently permits a maximum size of the lesser of 50 meters squared or 3% lot coverage for all accessory buildings. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of 2 accessory buildings in the form of a pool shed as well as a garden shed. One comment as a note was received from the public, which was in support of the proposed minor variance application. Staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct accessory buildings, which is consistent with the use of lands within the official plan residential designation. The intention of a cap of accessory buildings is to ensure that they are subordinate to the home in terms of size and maintain the existing residential character. Staff believe that the proposed increase in maximum permissions for size would not adversely impact the residential character of the neighborhood, as they are appropriately positioned and screened on the lands. Also, staff found that the larger size of the lot maintains a 3% lot coverage cap for accessory buildings. As such, it meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. Also, in review of the larger neighborhood, due to the larger size and nature of the lot and surrounding lands, it is not anticipated to increase in the size of the accessory building would relate to a negative impact on adjacent properties. As such, staff are of the opinion that the format of development is desirable for the neighborhood. Staff also are of the opinion that given the context of the neighborhood and the size of the lands, the proposed increase is considered minor in nature and can be considered appropriate development for the subject lands, as the location of the proposed accessory buildings behind the residence is not anticipated to cause any adverse impacts to surrounding uses. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposal satisfies the Planning Act tests and recommends that the application be granted. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Dan. So we'll move on to the applicant. It looks like we have Ms. Dornbosch here. Michelle, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of council. I've reviewed the staff report, obviously have no concerns. Thank you, Dan, for working with us on this application. I have nothing further to add unless there's any questions of council.
All right, good stuff. I don't believe we had any members of the public request to participate. Is that correct?
Through the chair, there was one member of the public that did request to participate. I'm not sure if he's here or not. There he is, right there.
I'm seeing a nod from the mayor that the person is here, I'm guessing. Okay. Do we know the person's name?
Good morning and thank you. My name is Mike Ernewine. I live at 153 Harris Road, Delaware. And I would just like to say that yes, we would support this variance request. We feel as neighbors it is reasonable and not excessive for the size of the property. And I thank you for your time and I thank you for the invite.
Okay, terrific. Quick and easy. Members of council, does anybody have a question or comment they'd like to make? Councillor Shipley.
It's through the chair to Dan, I guess, or Michelle. Proposed garden shed 20 by 20, like that's a small 2-car garage. I'm just wondering why we're going so big for a garden shed.
Through the chair, I can answer that. It's mainly for lawn equipment. Again, we do have a larger yard. Right now, we actually maintain the property behind us. So it is for our lawnmowers and the tractor that we use to cut the grass around our property. So otherwise, so we don't have to store it in our own garage. And I do have plans for a large vegetable garden. So that'll all be tied in together with the shed. But it's not for vehicles or anything like that. We don't have a driveway or access back there. So it's strictly for landscaping equipment and materials.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. The recommendation is that the minor variance be granted. Does someone want to move that recommendation? Councillor Scott and Councillor Shipley. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, Michelle, I think you're done. Same with Mr. Ernewine. Moving on to the second minor variance application today. All right, this is application A04-2020. The purpose and effect of the application for minor variance is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2005-005 as it relates to the maximum permitted size for accessory buildings in the agricultural A1 zone. The owner is requesting permission to construct an accessory building with an overall size of 199 square meters or 2,142 square feet in size, whereas Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of all accessory buildings to be the lesser of 3% lot coverage or 165 square meters, also known as 1,776 square feet. I believe, is it Marion or Dan on this one? Is it you again, Dan? All right, let's go ahead with your report, please.
Through the chair, thanks again to the committee members for hearing this today. I'll just share my screen again to the location map so everyone can gain their bearings. So the application before the committee today, as noted, is with respect to the property located at 3972 Carriage Road, which is requesting a minor variance for the purpose of increasing the maximum permissible size of an accessory building on the lands. The subject property is a 1.31 acre residential lot with a frontage of approximately 50.73 meters and is located on the east side of Carriage Road, north of the 402. The lands are generally surrounded by agricultural lands in crop production. They are designated agriculture in the Middlesex Center official plan and zoned agricultural A1 in the Middlesex Center zoning bylaw. Purpose and effect of the application for minor variance is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the maximum permitted size for an accessory building on the subject property. Whereas the comprehensive zoning bylaw permits the lesser of 3% lot coverage or 165 meters squared, that in this case being 158.9 meters squared. The applicant is requesting to build an accessory building the size of 199 meters squared or 2,142 square feet. No comments have been received from the public at the time of writing of the report, as well as making this application. Planning Act states applications for minor variances must meet 4 tests. Those being that the proposal keeping in the general intent of the official plan zoning bylaw, is the proposal appropriate for the desirable for the lands, and is the variance considered minor in nature. Staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct an accessory building, which is a consistent use of lands within the official plan agricultural designation. The intention of a cap on accessory buildings is to ensure that they are subordinate to the home in terms of size and maintain the existing character. The location of the proposed accessory building and its size in this case are not anticipated to detract from the single detached dwelling being the main use of the property. Additionally, the large area of the lot detracts from the potential to conflict with neighboring properties. As such, staff find that the proposal meets the intent of the bylaw. Additionally, the proposed increase in floor area is not anticipated to increase the usability of the building beyond what would reasonably be considered accessory to a residential use on the lands, and negatively impact the surrounding properties, negative impacts to the surrounding properties generally are not anticipated, as the proposed location of the accessory building is not adjacent to another established residential use. Staff are also satisfied that the existing size of the lot can reasonably accommodate the accessory building as proposed. As such, staff are of the opinion that the proposal is desirable and is minor in nature. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposal satisfies the Planning Act tests and recommends that the application be granted. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you very much. It looks like we have Mr. Vergeer here. Was there anything you'd like to add, sir?
Good morning, Council and everybody. Thank you, Dan, for your presentation and laying that out for everybody. I'm in complete agreement with everything that's been stated. I have nothing to add unless there's any questions from me.
Okay, good stuff. Did anybody from the public ask to speak on this application? I'm seeing a no on this one. Good. Council, does anybody have anything they'd like to ask? Councillor Heffernan and then Deputy Mayor Brennan. Debbie, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I was just wondering, what is the purpose, through the chair, I'm just wondering, what is the purpose of this accessory building? I see there's a porch attached to it. Just wondering what is the use for it?
I can answer that. The purpose for the building, we have no accessory buildings on the property. We have an attached single car garage at the house. The purpose would be just for storage of lawn and garden equipment. I have a boat. I have a small four-wheeler that I use with a blade for plowing snow in the wintertime. Things like that, basically just for our family's use. I was really careful in scaling this when I kind of came up with our intended size of vehicles, the boat, other things, to make sure that we had all the necessary room that we needed. And the porch is something we added. It kind of blends and matches with something very similar in size that we have on the house. And I believe the porch takes up about 26 square meters of the floor space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions have been answered through Councillor Heffernan questions, so I'm okay. Thank you.
Cool. Anyone else? Seeing none, the recommendation is to grant, I'm pretty sure, to grant the minor variance. Does anyone want to move that motion? Mayor DeVete and Councillor Scott. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. There's still the 20-day appeal period on yours and the prior application, but if nothing happens in the next 20 days, you are good to go.
Thank you, everybody.
No problem. Thanks you for going through the process. All right, can I get a motion to move out of Committee of Adjustment and into public meetings? Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan. Anyone opposed? None. Over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Silva. Just as a quick recap, the public meeting procedure for these planning applications is the same as in the prior process. And as always, then if anyone wishes to receive further notification of these being heard today, that you can send an email to planning@middlesexcentre.on.ca requesting further notification, provide your name, mailing address, and include your postal code. And please be advised that any comments that you express or write will be presented or present are a matter of public disclosure, public record for full disclosure. So the first item up is 8.1 or 9.1, pardon me, which is an official planning amendment. I'll turn it to our planner, Stephanie, to walk us through the purpose and effect of the application, give an explanation of the application, and present the staff report. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning. I just thought I'd start with an introduction of myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Stephanie Poirier. I'm a planner with the County of Middlesex, and I did provide planning services to Middlesex Centre from about October 2019 to January of this year when we were transitioning from staff. And so this is a file that I have carried over. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. There we go. All right, so the purpose of this report is to provide council with preliminary information on an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment in order to establish a farm wedding venue at 9661 Ivan Drive, and a recommendation will be given to council at a later meeting after feedback from the public meeting has been in consideration. The purpose of the official plan amendment is to get from the agricultural designation to agricultural policy area designation to allow a farm wedding venue, whereas it is not permitted. And the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject property from the agricultural zone to the agricultural 36 zone to permit a farm wedding venue within an existing 372 square meter or 4 square feet barn with an outdoor amenity space. And the zone change would be subject to holding provisions to ensure that it does not see amendment application. The applicants have proposed to add the following definition to the zoning bylaw. That wedding venue shall mean a lot, building, or structure, or part thereof in an agricultural area for weddings, bridal showers, or other parties / celebrations associated with weddings or civil unions. A separate site plan application would be required in order to develop the farm wedding venue use. and this application has not been submitted at this time. There you go. The property has an area of approximately 50 acres and is occupied by a single detached dwelling, a detached garage, and a metal-clad barn. The property buildings on the property here on the screen, as per Schedule B of the Middlesex Center official plan. Property agricultural use. So here on your screen before you is a concept plan that I'll speak to next. It's advised that the applicants purchased the property after an extensive search in order to reside on the property and to host the capacity of 140 people. The concept plan includes an outdoor ceremony / cocktail hour near the woodlands with a dinner and the reception to take place within the existing barn screen in front of you. Parking areas are proposed to be located along the sides of the existing driveway closer to Ivan Drive. So you can see that there in green. So the street is here and the proposed parking would be along the existing driveway, fully contained subject lands. As well, they are proposing to have some barrier-free parking to be located and portable washroom facilities would be brought in for each event and be located in close proximity to the existing barn as well. These required to support the events would be transported to the subject lands temporarily and removed upon the completion. And no overnight accommodations would occur on the subject lands, and no other structures are being proposed to be constructed at the time. To occur on lands that are currently not in agricultural crop production, and the agricultural land in crop production would continue to be cultivated by a farmer who is renting the lands. The subject property is designated agricultural area within the Middlesex Center official plan. The agricultural A1 zone within the zoning bylaw. Notice of the application has been circulated to agencies and as well as property owners in accordance with the plan. Time of writing the subject report, we had not received any comments from the public, but subsequent some comments from some neighboring property owners. So the property owners of 987 Ivan Drive did raise some concerns in regards to noise and music, excess garbage. Comment from the property owners at 22924 Kamoka Road, and have clarification questions about the application, as well as wanting to know how the proposal will impact the uses. And at the time of writing the subject report, we haven't received any comments from agencies. The subs are located within a prime agricultural area, which is intended to be protected for long-term agricultural uses, agricultural related uses, and on-farm diversified uses. The proposed farm wedding venue use does not meet the definitions of agricultural related use or on-farm diversified use as PPS. However, the PPS does enable planning authorities to permit limited non-agricultural use areas, provided that they satisfy a list of criteria. And staff have reviewed the proposal in accordance with the following criteria for establishing non-agricultural uses. So criteria number 1 being that the land does not comprise a specialty crop area. The provincial policy statement defines as specialty crop areas as containing specialty crops such as tender fruits, peach, cherries, plums, grapes, other fruit crops, vegetable crops, greenhouse crops, and crops from agriculturally developed organic. Staff are satisfied that the land does not comprise of a specialty crop area. Criteria number 2 being the proposed use complies with the minimum distance separation formula. And at the time of writing the report, staff had not received an MDS calculation, but subsequent to writing the report, and our CBO, Arnie Marsman, is currently reviewing the documents that were provided. To be designated to accommodate the proposed use. In regards to the identified need for the proposed use, plans are a farm wedding venue trend within Middlesex County and within Ontario, but have not been provided any quantifiable analysis in this regard. Staff note that the agent has indicated that it is not uncommon for these types of venues to be booked for several years in advance. For these types of facilities, staff note that there are presently not many farm wedding venue facilities in Middlesex Centre or within the county as a whole. And criteria number 4 being that alternative locations have been evaluated, and there are no reasonable alternative locations which avoid prime. There are no alternative reasonable locations in prime agricultural areas with lower priority agriculture. In general, are better located in settlement areas. However, it is recognized that the attraction for these facilities in a rural setting, which may be difficult to achieve within a settlement area. Staff note that the subject lands identified are within a prime agricultural area under the PPS and are identified agricultural area, and most soils are considered to be prime agricultural soils, which provides limited opportunity to agricultural lands within the rural area. Staff have also evaluated the proposal in regards to section 10.1 and considering an official plan amendment. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal is generally in conformity with the goals for the agricultural designated areas. The proposed farm wedding venue is considered to be consistent with the PPS criteria for being that it is not located in a specialty crop area, complies with MDS, has a justified need, and evaluated. The county official plan provides direction for atypical proposals, such as farm venue, to be addressed in the local official plans. And additionally, both the PPS and the county official plan provide policy plans, and the proposed amendment is not anticipated to negatively impact agricultural lands. The property is currently serviced with private servicing, and the agent has indicated that the washroom facilities in the form of porta potty site for each event and removed upon the completion of each event, eliminating the need for any improvements to the private septic system existing on the subject lands or the additional septic system for the proposed use. It is noted that the Ontario Building Code contains health and safety requirements firefighting and sprinklers may be necessary from a fire prevention or emergency services perspective and will be a plan approval process. Additional requirements may include, but are not limited to, improvements. Surrounding land uses may experience an increase in traffic, noise, and light only occur within the area. Staff note that the subject lands are located generally well removed from other dwellings. Staff also note that a noise study required the site plan approval process and mitigation measures may be required at that time. The subject as per Schedule B of the Middlesex Center official plan. The proposal is not anticipated to impact the significant woodland on the subject lands, and the lands contain any other environmental features and are not regulated by the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. Facility within the Middlesex Center zoning bylaw was too broad of a use in comparison to what the applicants intended the farm wedding venue to be utilized for. The agent has provided a definition of farm wedding venue, which narrows down the uses to weddings and other similar events associated with weddings and civil unions, as opposed to other uses contained within the definition of events facility, such as business meetings and religious gatherings. In order to prevent the farm wedding venue use to expand beyond what is currently proposed, staff recommend that the site-specific zone only apply to a portion of the subject lands that contains the proposed use as per Schedule A of the bylaw. Zoning to prevent the use from occurring without the completion of a noise study and site plan agreement. Staff note that with the proposal. Having said that, it is noted that through research into how other municipalities have dealt with farm wedding venues, there is apparent difficulty in implementing and enforcing operations such as a licensing bylaw beyond land use planning controls. And so staff are exploring the idea or events licensing bylaw in order to better implement these types of agricultural event facilities. A recommendation will be given to council after feedback from a public meeting has been received and taken into consideration. So it is recommended that the report be received.
Thank you for that report, Stephanie. I'm almost wondering if anyone wants to ask anything specific at this point, because a lot of, maybe it's just here, but we were losing a lot of content. I see nod. Yeah, well, actually, maybe we'll go through everything and then we'll ask for questions, and then that way, if they're answered in a subsequent presentation or clarified, we'll come back to anything anyone wants to. I was just hesitating there for a minute because we really had difficulty at times. So thank you for that, Stephanie. I'll ask the applicant then. We have Casey Kulczyski. I think, I'm hoping, and Cindy and Dave Rector for Nottingwood Inc. I think probably Casey, you're going to be presenting.
Yes, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm just going to be verbally presenting.
Perfect.
So through you, Madam Mayor, councilors, staff, and members of the public, thank you for having us here today. I am joined by members of the Rector family representing the Notting Hill Inc. Corporation. We have reviewed Stephanie's report in depth, and we are in agreement with her findings and her direction in that report. I know her presentation was cut in and out there, so maybe not all the information was relayed, but we are in agreement with her report, and we're very pleased with how it was written. Just a couple of maybe key notes that maybe got lost in it is, I know there was some question around the Union gas line that crosses the property. I can confirm through our survey that the Union gas line is behind the proposed facility through the agricultural field. So it will have no impact on the facility, nor is it like bisecting our driveway or parking area. So just a clarity on that, because I know the aerial photo showed the gas line in front. But we did confirm through a survey that the gas line is behind our facility and there's no impacts from that. The Rectors, this property was purchased after an extensive search, as Stephanie mentioned. The desire was to find essentially a move-in ready location that could, serve as a residence for the Rectors, but also have a facility on site for the farm wedding venue, as well as some sort of feature to use as a backdrop for wedding ceremonies. So in this case, the wooded area. And then also, and most importantly, a facility that just we would be able to run venue or events out of and not disturb adjacent agricultural operations or adjacent residential uses. So this property was kind of found and purchased after a long, extensive search. There were a lot of other properties considered, but they just didn't check all those boxes, and like the subject lands did. The Rectors are definitely looking to be good neighbors here. We are aware of some of the comments that have been received from adjacent landowners, as well as some of the local councilors. I can confirm that a meeting was held with the local councillor as well as the adjacent landowners to address those concerns just earlier this week. So we do know that there is some encouraging mitigation measures and some encouraging words of good luck from the adjacent landowners with the proposed use, and some of those concerns are, we're being cautiously optimistic that we can address those through that site plan process. We are aware and are in agreement that a noise study would be beneficial here to highlight any mitigation measures in order to reduce those noise impacts on the adjacent landowner through that concern raised. We are looking forward and we are hoping that the recommendation report for this proposal can be brought forward at the next council meeting. Dave and Cindy are kind of chomping at the bit to move on to the next stage as a result of the COVID-19 and the wiping out of the wedding season this year. There's a lot of opportunities to kind of fill the calendar for the next couple of years with potential events, and they would really like to get the approval in place so that they have some security to move forward with booking events and then making the modifications to the facility that they have proposed. And I'll let Cindy and Dave kind of describe the plan changes to the barn because it'll be actually quite a spectacular piece. And just kind of my last point on this is we're really looking forward to bringing this kind of event venue to Middlesex Center. We think it'll be a great addition to the local economy, and there will be great spin-off benefits from this type of facility in the local community. So I'll just, like I said, I'll just pass it over to Dave and Cindy, and if they have anything to add with regards to their proposed facility.
Madam Mayor and Council, Dave Rector here. to join you today and to just present our proposal to you. My son Scott is president of our little company, and it's a family-run business. I'm just going to turn a lot of it over to Scott, and he'll fill you in on what we've done in terms of trying to get to where we're at right now, and just present a picture for you that will help maybe help you better understand where we're coming from.
Hi, Madam Mayor. This is Scott Rector. Thank you again for having us today. Appreciate your time and effort. Just in light of what Casey was saying, we did have an extensive search on the property specifically to not negatively affect the agriculture environment as well as any neighbors adjacent to us. We spent over a year looking for a property that was far enough away from any neighbors that it shouldn't be a concern. That being said, we actually did meet with our neighbor last night, or the night before, Emily, and she was very friendly. We had a great discussion with her and her mother, and I think we are on neutral terms at this point, but we are still, of course, going to go ahead with a noise study to cover any other concerns or questions that they might have about that. But we do plan on being the best neighbors we can be, and with the barn, we are going to be putting wood up on the inside, making it look really nice. It's going to be a beautiful backdrop. It's going to promote agritourism. We have a different crop in every year. This year we have corn, which is looking beautiful. We're rotating through wheat and beans as well. So it'll be nice to have our guests out here to experience the agriculture environment.
I think also, Madam Mayor and Council, just that we've worked with our neighbor to what Scott was saying, and it was a very amicable meeting. We met with Councillor Ertz as well, and just so he came out and surveyed the property, and I'll leave it to him to provide his comments on that. But we certainly are willing and thankful for the opportunity just to be heard and addressed.
Thank you for that, Ben. I don't believe any members of the public have been added to the list. I see no. I'll turn it over then to Council to ask questions. Did you want to start off, Councillor Arts?
Sure. Yes. I went out the other night and I had a few questions. They were well answered. I think it's a good spot. Agriculturally wise, if I was a farmer, you'd plant that hill and you know you'd get nothing back. So you're not losing any crop production. Like, they're good people. And I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to anybody else. Any questions? I know there were blips and blops. Councillor Silva. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to maybe Stephanie. There are still some questions about MDS to be answered. I'm pretty sure you had in the report that complying with MDS 1 needs to happen. I'm curious, the only real concern I have with this is if the farm wedding venue proceeds and potentially a neighboring property wants to change, something about their farming operation, what would happen then? So let's say in a hypothetical situation, the folks to the east want to put up a horse stable or something like that. Would they then be restricted in terms of where on the property it could be placed to make sure it's complying with MDS because of how close the farm wedding venue is to the property line or what have you?
So through Madam Mayor to the councillor, there would be, so within the agricultural area, whenever you are putting up either a new livestock barn or an expansion, or whether it be a new dwelling, it needs to comply with the minimum distance separation. So you would be correct. If a neighboring property did want to put up a new livestock facility, let's say, subsequent to the wedding venue coming into place, it would be impacted by, they would have to place the location so it would meet the MDS setback from the wedding venue. But I would also point out, it would also have to meet the setback from the existing residents on the property as well. So there is a required setback from the dwelling as well.
Add on?
Not at this time, no, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, seeing none then, I'll consider the motions for the application. Before us, the recommended The recommendation is that the report regarding a proposed farm wedding venue at 9661 Ivan Drive be received for information. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Silva and Councillor Scott. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried then. Thank you all for your very comprehensive and thorough presentations and the information that's been provided to add color to that. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you next time then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second item up today is zoning bylaw amendment 1220, and Marion is going to be handling this application. And there we have Marion. So again, I'll ask the planner to explain the purpose and effect of the application, give the explanation, and present the staff report. Good morning, Marion.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll just share my screen so I can pull up the location map. Okay, and hopefully everybody can see that. So the purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject land at 14351 Medway Road from an institutional zone to a site-specific village commercial zone. This zone would permit a limited amount of commercial uses, including professional offices and retail stores, as well as institutional uses that are currently permitted on the property. So the site is just under a ½ acre in area and is located on the south side of Medway Road, east of Richmond Street. It is currently vacant of development, but it does abut residential uses to the west and to the south, and commercial and institutional uses are located immediately to the east and on the north side of Medway Road. So this application is actually a result of a conditionally granted consent for the lands that contain the ARVA clinic, which is just to the east of the subject site. The rezoning for this site, which is considered the severed parcel to a commercial zone, is a condition of consent. So staff assessed the proposed amendment against applicable policies of the official plans for Middlesex County and for Middlesex Center and the PPS, and determined that the use would be appropriate for the village center designation of ARVA. It is a good example of developing underutilized lands and would support the development of the commercial node around Richmond and Medway intersection. So any development on this land would also be subject to site plan control and municipal standards that would address things such as parking, setbacks, or landscaping, which will also assist in mitigating the development's impacts on residential uses that are located to the west and to the south. This application was also circulated internally to municipal staff, to the county engineer, and to the Conservation Authority, and they have no concerns with the proposed amendment. At the time of writing my report, I did not receive any comments from the public. However, I did speak to a resident who had general concerns about the commercial uses along Medway, especially between the stretch between Richmond Street and Arva Street, but they did not have any concerns about the requested rezoning. Additionally, I did not receive any comments from MTO at the time of writing my report. However, they recently confirmed that they don't have any concerns with the proposed rezoning. However, based on the draft site plan, they do have some concerns with the placement of the entrance, since it is close to the left turn lane on Medway Road. But these comments can be dealt with during site plan control and do not impact the rezoning application. So as a result of the aforementioned, the site-specific village commercial exception 4 zone provides flexibility for commercial and institutional uses within the village center. It is consistent with zoning on lands immediately to the east and the west of the property, and as well as the planned function for the village center, and is appropriate for the site. As such, planning staff recommend that this application be approved, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. I put it on mute. I think it's less feedback sometimes. I was just saying that we now have the agent, Ms. Barbara Rosser, on behalf of Mirandi Health, to do her presentation. Good morning.
Good morning, Your Worship, Council and staff. I'm Barbara Rosser, Planning Consultant for Mirandi Health Inc. and agent for this application. Marion's report was quite thorough. I really don't have a lot to add. As she mentioned, it's within the village center designation, and it's probably one of the few vacant parcels left within the designation this designation in the Arvis settlement area. The C1-4 zone is just a more limited range of C1 uses, but development will be subject to the overall C1 zone provisions. The development of the site will be subject to site plan approval, which we understand and will proceed with shortly upon passage of the zoning bylaw and expiry of the appeal period. I've examined the bylaw and find it to be all in order. There's just one small typo in section 1 after institutional. In brackets it says A1, which it should say just I. So that's just a very minor thing, but we support the recommendation. We're happy with the bylaw, and we would hope that council would see fit to concur with the recommendation.
Thank you for that report. Then we have nothing from the public. I'll ask council then, are there any questions of the applicant or staff? Seeing none, then we have a motion before us that the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 12-2020 filed by Ms. Barbara Rosser on behalf of Mirandi Health Inc. to rezone the subject property at 1435-1 Medway Road to the site-specific village commercial exception 4 C1-4 Zone B approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Shipley and Deputy Mayor Brennan. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you everyone for your work on this file. And we'll move on to Queen Street, application B14-2020. And Dan will be taking us through that one. There you are. Okay, Dan, if you would give the purpose and effect and the explanation and present your report, we'll get started.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just bear with me 1 second, just pulling up the purpose and effect statement here. Okay. So through the chair, thank you, Madam Mayor, and to all members of council. The purpose and effect of consent application B14-2020 is to create a new residential lot for the purpose of constructing constructing one single detached dwelling. The severed lot is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 15.8 meters or 51.8 feet on Ontario Avenue in an area of approximately 578 meters squared or 0.14 of an acre. The retained parcel is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 30 meters or 98.4 feet on Ontario Avenue with an area of 1,098 meters squared or 0.27 of an acre on a property legally described as part of lots 7 to 9, block 8, plan 109 in the municipality of Middlesex Centre. Did you want me to proceed with the report now?
Okay, please.
So thank you, everyone. Just confirming everyone can see the location map there on the screen now. Perfect. So through the mayor to all members of council, the application as described before council today is with respect to 88 Queen Street, which is a consent to sever an existing residential lot for the purpose of establishing a new single detached residence. The subject property is 1,673.8 meters squared or 0.41 of an acre. Is a residential parcel that's located in the Kamoka-Kilworth settlement area on the northwest corner of Queen Street and Ontario Avenue, and is legally described as part of lot 7 to 9, block 8, plan 109. The property contains a single detached dwelling and is on full municipal services from Queen Street. The lands are designated residential in the local official plan and zoned urban residential first density exception UR1-4 zone in the zoning bylaw. As noted, the applicant is requesting to sever a lot with a frontage of approximately 15.8 meters on Ontario Ave with an area of approximately 578 meters squared for the purposes of erecting a new single detached residence. The retained lands would have a frontage of approximately 30 meters on Ontario Avenue with an area of 1,098 meters squared. Generally speaking, the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and local official plan support lot creation and promote infill and intensification to achieve growth objectives within the existing settlement boundaries where deemed appropriate. The subject lands are municipally serviced and abut an existing municipal road, meaning an extension of services to and roads would not be required in this instance, just a connection. Additionally, the proposed lot is able to meet zoning bylaw requirements of a minimum 15-meter frontage in an area of 450 meters squared. This type of development is the preferred form as it promotes a more efficient use of land and infrastructure while reducing the need for an expansion of the settlement area boundaries. Notice of the application was circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with the Planning Act requirements. No concerns were received prior to writing this report. We did receive an email this morning from a resident in the area, which spoke to support for the proposal. However, they were looking to limit development on the lands to 1 story as opposed to 2 stories, which would be permitted in the existing zoning. Given the above, planning staff are recommending that the subject application be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the planner's report. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for that report. Then I'll ask, we have Mr. Matt Van Giel as agent here to speak. Would you like to address the council, Matt? There you are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Van Giel, and I am the acting agent for this application. Thank you very much for the time to speak today. I read Dan's report thoroughly, and I think Dan did a great job summarizing what we're trying to do. I do just have one quick point of clarification here surrounding one of the conditions that Dan listed, and that's condition number 9, which speaks to servicing of the lot. It mentions that the owner installs separate water, storm, and sanitary service connections to the severed parcel. Just one point of clarification, and Dan, we already briefly spoke about this, but there are no storm water outlets available for this lot. So we will not be installing a storm service connection. However, I'm not saying that stormwater management will not be addressed. It just will have to be contained on the lot itself, and we won't be installing a connection to any type of outlet.
Is that everything then that for you, Matt?
Yep, and then just one other thing I wanted to clarify, and I'm not sure if there's a member from Public Works present at the meeting here, but condition 11 just asks that the owner is required to pay the municipality an amount for the purposes of funding the reconstruction of Ontario Avenue. And I just wasn't sure if that is something that is currently planned, that reconstruction, or if that is an amount that will go towards, some type of reserve fund, knowing that, one day the road will be reconstructed.
Okay, thanks for that question, Matt. I'll pass it over to Rob. He's our Public Works and Engineering Director.
Yes, so through you, Madam Mayor, I kind of, as I rejoined the conversation, I kind of missed part of that, but I think the question was about the value for the reconstruction of the road in the future. Yes, so that calculation will be based on half the road reconstruction for the frontage of the property, and that's exactly correct. It'll go in a fund for that's earmarked for future road reconstruction projects. And I'm just going to circle back to your earlier comment regarding the stormwater. Yeah, we acknowledge that yes, there are no municipal storm sewers on that street, so stormwater will be dealt with on the property.
Okay, thank you for that, Rob. Any clarification that you'd like, Matt?
No, that's awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
Rob. I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Matt. I'll turn it back to Dan.
Through the chair, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I did speak with Matt in advance of the meeting about the conditions that were outlined in the planner's report. The council resolution that you have before you today has removed the reference to the stormwater requirement. So it's just for sanitary and water.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. There are no public members listed to speak, so I'll go to council now. Is there any member of council who'd like to ask or clarify anything? Councillor Silva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess to Mr. Van Giel, the existing lot's a really nice size, I'm sure, for a lot of people who would, potentially be interested in owning the property. My concern is the separate property, 7-foot setback on the west side, 10-foot setback on the east side. Why not? I mean, I guess I know the answer, but why not take a little bit more from the retained lot and provide a little bit more buffer there for the severed property instead?
Yeah,
I really, I know what the PPS says. I know what the official plan says. I don't need to be schooled or reminded on that. But just keeping in mind the existing character of the neighborhood, I know we've approved infill in other locations, but this really feels like shoehorning in a house that, by the drawing here, the proposed building envelope would actually be bigger than the existing house on the retained lot minus the driveway.
Yeah, that's a great question, Councillor De Silva. So that lot size is actually determined. So on the existing home, we will have a rear yard setback off of the house, which is 26 feet. So if you take that 26-foot rear yard setback, that actually leaves us with a 52-foot wide lot. So if we were to go any wider in terms of frontage on Ontario Ave, we would actually be cutting into that required rear yard setback for the existing home. And maybe Dan, you can speak to that as well.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Silva, that is correct. When we looked at, well, it's hard to tell without an actual survey in play, and there is a condition on the consent that does require the applicant to ensure that they're meeting minimum zoning requirements for the retained lands, or minor variances be sought if required. So in this instance, they would have to meet that minimum rear yard setback. In the case currently right now, the lot actually fronts Queen Street. So when you look at it the other way around, technically speaking, the lot after, if a severance is approved, would now front Ontario Street. So that rear yard actually flips to the other side of the house. And I'm not sure what that dimension is on the other side, but that would actually become, between the two lots, would become an interior side yard.
Okay, then I guess I have an issue with the proposed building envelope. Then it's quite large for the property, and therefore the side yard setbacks are incredibly small. There have been some other lots that have worked really well for infill. I don't think this is one of them, personally.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments or questions from council? All right, seeing none, then we can consider the motions for the application before us. The motion is that the consent application as filed by Matt and described earlier be granted subject to 14 conditions, and further that it's the reasons for granting it include that it's consistent with the provincial policy statement, both the County of Middlesex and Middlesex Centre official plans, and that it complies with the comprehensive zoning bylaw of Middlesex Centre. Is there a mover and a seconder? Oh, I see Councillor Arts and Councillor Heffernan. Are there any opposed? And that is one. That is carried. Thank you very much. Note that there's a 20-day appeal period as per all of these applications. So thank you, gentlemen, for your presentations. Dan, you'll be taking the next one, 9.4, which is B 152020, which is 144559 9 Mile Road. And Brian McClary is present. So if you would like to explain the purpose effect, give an explanation of the application and present the staff report, please.
So through the chair, thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, the purpose and effect of this application B 1520 is to sever a parcel of land consisting of approximately 40 hectares or 100 acres and a frontage of 577.8 meters or 1,895.6 feet from a parcel consisting of 100 hectares or 248 acres. The retained lands are proposed to have a frontage of approximately 920.5 meters or 3,020 feet and an area of 59.69 hectares or 147.5 acres. I'll just pull up the location map here as well so everyone can see it. So again, the application before council today is with respect to a consent to sever an existing agricultural parcel of land for the purpose of establishing two separate parcels of land. The subject property is an existing 248-acre agricultural parcel located in Middlesex Center on the southeast corner of Richmond Street and 9 Mile Road, and is legally described as part of Lot 14, 15, and 16, Concession 8, in the geographic township of London, municipality of Middlesex Center. As a note to the committee, the application was originally submitted and heard as well as approved on April 24th, 2019. However, due to incorrect measurements presented, the applicant reapplied to achieve their desired severance. The lands are designated agriculture within the Middlesex Center official plan and is zoned agricultural A1 zone within the zoning bylaw. The subject property currently gains access from 9 Mile Road. As noted, the applicant is requesting to sever an agricultural lot with a frontage of approximately 577.8 meters along 9 Mile Road with a lot area of approximately 40 hectares or 100 acres. For the purpose of establishing a separate agricultural lot. This lot would contain only agricultural lands in crop production. The retained lands are proposed to have a frontage of 920.5 meters and an area of 59.69 hectares or 147.5 acres. This lot would contain two single detached dwellings that are each serviced by private well and septic systems, a residential garage, a bank barn, and a farm machinery shed, as well as farmland in crop production. No change of use has been proposed by the applicant at this time. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and Middlesex Center official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas for agricultural purposes where the lots are of a size sufficiently large enough to maintain the productive and viable farm units. The size of both the lands proposed to be severed and the lands proposed to be retained appear to meet the agricultural goals and general agricultural criteria of the official plan. Additionally, the proposed lot sizes are also consistent with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. The two single detached dwellings on the lands are considered legally non-conforming, of which resulting a decision would not change that use. Notice of the application has been circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with Planning Act requirements. No concerns have been received prior to writing of this report. Given the above, planning staff are recommending that the subject application be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the planner's report. Thank you, and available for answering any questions you may have.
Thank you for that report, Dan. I'll ask then if the applicant, Brian McClary, wants to speak to this.
I don't have anything, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we have no members of the public. Does council have any questions of either the applicant or the planner? Seeing none, then we have a motion before us that this consent application is described by the planner be granted. It's subject to 8 conditions. And again, it's consistent with the statements, plans, and comprehensive zoning bylaws of all the applicable municipalities and bodies. So I would entertain a motion. Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Shipley. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time on that. And I think that brings us to the end of this. I'll entertain a motion to move back into regular council. Councillor Heffernan and seconded by Councillor Silva. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, we can move to correspondence items. There are 3. Does anyone want to speak to any of these or ask questions? Seeing none, then a mover and a seconder to receive these as information. A mover is Derek, thank you, and Councillor, Deputy Mayor Brennan, sorry. Any opposed to that? And that is carried. Deputy Mayor, would you like to give an update on what happened at council yesterday? At the county, that is.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. We started off the day yesterday morning with finalizing the strategic plan for the county, which was accomplished. So that's done now. First report was from Chris Trainey on a box culvert in Natalie Metcalf. There was only one bid. The total cost of that project was $308,000. There's been 4 full-time paramedics doing testing, COVID testing throughout the county. They've been testing not only paramedic staff, but firefighters, police officers. They've done a little bit of testing out on farms, and up to date, they've tested approximately 4,700 people. So they are active in doing those tests. Leads employment services contract has been renewed with the county. Last year, they spoke with 27 people and tried to help them get jobs. And out of all their participation, 3 got full-time jobs, and that's all through the Ontario Works program. The HR policy for the county is being revised somewhat now to look at the current changes of work from home. Some people will have the opportunity to continue to work from home, part-time, full-time. So those HR policies are in effect being looked at again. There's the PPE shortages, N95 masks and that are continue to be looked at. A new type of mask, what they call a half mask, has a P100 filter in it, so they can be reused. So they're starting to use a lot of those now. So they just replace the filter in them and carry on working with them for that. The Play It Forward county initiative, where kids could get a glove and bat or a hockey stick and a ball, was aimed at kids from 3 to 17 years of age. Over 300 kids reached out for the program and were given what they requested. There still is some opportunity if anybody else knows anybody that's looking for a glove or a soccer ball or a hockey stick and ball, that they still have some left. The county staff is still working with Adelaide Metcalf, helping them get things organized up there, and they continue to work in that municipality. The libraries, 6 of them will be reopening with curbside pickup. There will be the availability to make appointments to get in and use the computers. So they are under the Schedule 3 reopening process from the county are starting to reopen it with limitations, but they are reopening. The rebuild at the county garage in Hyde Park is underway. The front of the building has been tore off, and the footings for the new building for the PWE staff of the county is being built. So that's well underway. All the other problems in the projects and capital projects within the county are proceeding without any issues. The 5-year replacement plan was presented to us. They have 37 more kilometers of road to look after with the road assumption this year. They spend about $837,000 per year in capital cost. And so that was approved yesterday, the 5-year replacement plan. Strathmere Lodge is opening with visitation, like outside door visitation, virtual visitation, and through window visitations. They continue to run tests every 2 weeks with their staff and residents, and still to date there have been no cases or anything. So those are the main highlights of the meeting yesterday, Madam Mayor.
Thank you kindly. Are there any questions of the deputy? Councillor Shipley?
Through the mayor, the deputy mayor, John, did they give any statistics of the 4,700 people that were tested? Was there any positive?
Not that I'm aware of. There are very few positive tests right now. As you see in the news every day, we haven't had any. The last one was 5, but 4 of those people came from Florida and 1 from some other place outside the country. So we're doing pretty well. There was really no indication how many positives out of the 4,700, but things are going quite well within the London Middlesex region as far as COVID-19.
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay, thank you for that update, Deputy Mayor Brennan. Is there any other business? I see none. In that case, I'll move to bylaws. The bylaws today are listed 1 through 8, and the motion before us is that bylaws.
Save, just through the chair, save and accept 13.3 and 13.4. We'll bring back the right-of-way bylaw for August 12th, and 13.4 will be brought when we just do a review of that report.
It was awful. There we go. Sorry, I turned it off because of the echo. So as amended, pardon me, yes, we've got the 2 items there. So that those bylaws 2013 through 54 as amended, inclusive, be approved, passed, and adopted. Councillor Silva and Councillor Shipley. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, then those are carried, and we will now entertain a motion to go into closed meeting. If I could have a mover and a seconder for that, then we'll start the process. Councillor Heffernan and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. So we have to wait now to ensure